My name is Priscille LeBlanc, Vice President Corporate Communications at Air Canada. Air Canada's President and CEO, Calin Rovinescu, joins me today as we continue the conversation started a month ago with an update on one of our immediate challenges, funding the pension deficit. Calin, you have previously told us that Air Canada is well positioned for the recovery if we can manage through the recession, but you've been equally clear that we have hurdles to overcome, not least of which is funding the pension deficit.
That's right, Priscilla. I've said repeatedly that pensions are the number one priority, and so again, we've been spending most of our time on that. You know, Air Canada has contributed something like $1.7 billion since 2004 to the pension plans, but despite that, right now we have a deficit that is about $2.9 billion. We have to find alternative funding solutions. That doesn't mean that the pension plans won't be paid. We simply have to find alternative funding solutions, and we have now engaged in discussions with the relevant parties.
What does a $2.9 billion deficit really mean? How much money would be available for retirees and employees if the plans were to be terminated today?
Well, you have to think of it like this. We have about $12 billion of future liabilities as determined by the actuaries in respect of our retirees and employees, and about $9 billion of assets based on current valuations. So that's the approximately $2.9 billion differential, which means that the plans are about 76% funded on average. However, there's about 10 plans with different levels of funding in each case. For example, one of them is a supplemental retirement plan, and that is substantially less funded than that 76% level. So these plans are at different levels. Retirees would get, therefore, on average, 76%, although some might get more than that, depending on the priorities that are in their various plans. So you have to think of it that these plans are approximately 76% funded.
This is really the worst case scenario. We need to try to avoid this.
Well, exactly. Essentially, you know, if the company continues in operation, if the plans remain as is, then, you know, over time, we would expect that people would get 100% of their pensions. But that's precisely why we have to get everybody to move in the same direction to ensure that that the company stays fully funded and in an operating position.
In a previous employee message, you spoke of the need for a moratorium on pension funding. Can you tell us more about that?
Essentially, what I'm trying to get at is to find an alternative funding solution. Without that, we'd have to pay something like $650 million this year, which is not a realistic number given the current state of the economy, the recession, our liquidity position. So we need to find an alternative funding solution which does not equate to any form of concession. We're simply discussing an alternative funding solution with our unions and with the government.
What will it take to get a moratorium in place?
The moratorium is extremely critical to us, so we're working very hard to get it in place. It requires, first and foremost, government approval. But my sense is that that government approval will come if we have the union support and the retirees' support. So we're in active dialogue with them. And this is real time. We have to do this right now.
Does the moratorium call for any changes to retiree benefits?
Look, I want to be perfectly clear. We're not asking for any concessions. This is not a situation where we're looking to migrate to a defined contribution program or to change any of the benefits under the plans. This is strictly a funding issue, and therefore a moratorium on some of the payments to permit the company to be able to make them, and therefore to have employees continue to receive 100% rather than that 76% number that we were talking about before.
Calin, do you think the government will support a moratorium along the lines that we've proposed?
The government is currently studying the entire pension formula. They've appointed an MP to do cross-Canada studies on it, and there's a group of large corporations that are part of an initiative to lobby the government, and Air Canada has joined that. But in our case, the situation is much more urgent, and we can't necessarily wait for the results of that. So what we've done is we've had high-level meetings in Ottawa with ministers, members of parliament, senior government officials, the regulators, to make sure that we try to find an alternative solution, and we've discussed this moratorium indeed with them. My sense, to be frank, is that there should be support from Ottawa, provided that our own members, being the unions, the employees, and the retirees, are in favor of finding an alternative solution here.
You know, there's talk in some circles that the real solution is for Air Canada to reduce pension plan benefits.
I've heard that from many, many different quarters, almost as a regular refrain, but that's not where we're heading. Many people have said that the plan is too rich, that it's the product of many years of Crown Corporation status when benefits were determined through the civil service, and that continued and was renewed, and there would be a layer upon a layer upon a layer added on. So whether it's too rich or not too rich, that's a debate, quite frankly, that I'm not even engaging in right now. I have made it very clear that it's my objective to preserve those benefits, and that the only thing I want to discuss with the labor unions, the retirees who are represented through the pioneers, the various officials in Ottawa, the pension regulator, is the funding mechanism that in the current environment, based on what happened last year in the equity markets, whether we can find an alternative funding solution, not a modification to the benefits.
If we get a moratorium, are we out of the woods?
I wouldn't say we're out of the woods, but we might start seeing a bit of the light through the trees. The moratorium is the first and probably the most important of our major initiatives. But in addition to that, to get through this very difficult environment, we're going to need to have some funding. Liquidity has to come in pretty quickly. We need to have our cost reduction program fully engaged and look to reduce our costs in relation to our main low-fare competitors. A fairly aggressive revenue program. You know, we're out there chasing revenue every day, and we have to continue with that. And then finally, we need labor stability. We have to be able to weather this storm without having any noise in the labor environment.
And finally, Calin, what should we as Air Canada employees be doing during this period?
Well, you know, Priscilla, I'm a big believer that out of adversity often comes great strength. And so with the quality of people we have inside Air Canada, if we can stay focused on the customer in an atmosphere of safety and respect, and everyone continues to do their jobs, leave the distractions aside, I think that we'll be well on our way. You know, the map of our world is extremely complicated, and there are many, many distractions. However, people that are focusing on this pension funding issue are working flat out, and I'm confident that with a little bit of good luck and some cooperation all around, we should be able to get there.
Thank you for this conversation today, Calin. This issue is of great importance to all of us at Air Canada. And remember that you can send us your comments and questions at horizons@aircanada.ca. Thank you for your time today.